Hi and welcome to the instructional video for making our little monster here. I hope you're as excited as I am. I can't wait to get stuck in. So this is how it's going to work. First, we're going to go over a couple of health and safety things that you really need to know. Second, I'm going to show you how to make your very own little monster character. And finally, we've got some maker tips just for you. So let's get started. These are our 5 top tips for safety if you're making one of our kits. 1. Pointy bits. You've got to look out for those pointy bits. Because our kits are so awesome, in your creative genius you might find bits and bobs and you might want to use them to stick them on a car or a character, but a little piece like this must be sanded, nicely rounded all over like this, so it's nice and safe for you. Little pointy bits like this, make sure they're sanded all the way around. You want them to be nice and smooth. 2. Wires. These little aluminium wires are awesome and they can be used for ears and tails and all sorts of creative uses, but they are sharp. So if you're going to use these wires, you must make sure that you get a piece of sandpaper and you sand the ends off like that to get rid of any sharp bits. If you're using them as a tail or something that's going to stick out, you must, using the bead in your pack, stick a bead on the end like this. If you're not going to do that, then you must fold it over like this so that there's no sticky up bits like this. It's really important. Make sure you get this one right. 3. Sanding. I know sanding's a bit boring, kids, but you've got to do it. And there's a couple of reasons for that. Pieces of wood, when they've been cut just with a saw, they have very sharp edges and they are prone to splintering. If you were to catch this on a bench or something like that, it can actually break a huge piece of wood off and leave a sharp splinter. So it's really important that we sand the edges of the piece of wood. This sharp corner here is called the arris. So when we're sanding, we're taking the arris off. You only need a few strokes like this, and there we go, that's the arris taken off. It doesn't take a lot, but you do have to do every edge, every single one. The other thing to look out for is where we've drilled holes, there might be little spiky bits sticking out like this. So before you put anything in those holes, make sure you get those spiky bits off. A little bit of rub with a sandpaper like this, and there we go, it's all done. Take your time with this one because it makes a real difference to how your character looks. 4. Super glue. Super glue is amazing and sticks things in seconds, but it also sticks your fingers to pieces of wood in seconds as well. And that's why we include gloves with all of our kits. Make sure that you wear them. And kids, if your grown-up has popped off for a cup of tea, don't use the super glue. Don't use it because that's how you end up in A&E with a big piece of wood stuck to your hand. Be safe with the super glue, guys. 5. Safety equipment. Sounds obvious, but if you're doing this on your kitchen table, make sure you put a suitable covering down so you don't get it covered in super glue or glue or something like that. That's the first thing. Second thing is, if you're using one of these or a hammer, any kind of hammer, you should be wearing some safety specs as well, so that if you happen to do this, you're going to be fine, okay? So get yourself some safety specs if you're going to use the hammers. Lastly, this is about sanding. We just want to make sure that you're sanding in a well-ventilated area. Some of the really fine particles of wood can be damaging to your lungs, so you must make sure really you do it outside, or you might want to get yourself a suitable face covering, like this one here with the red bit in the middle. Okay, that's it. Have fun building our kits. To get the wire in, you hold the wire about 1 centimetre back from the end, no further than that so the wire doesn't bend. And then you hold it over the hole and twist it as you push it in. And once you push it in, it should be in there nice and tightly. Then you can kind of curl it round. The same bit goes for this little fork bit here on the back. And that is how to build one of our cool little teethy monster characters. If you want to go into it in much more detail, how to sand, some tips on how to fix them if they're broken, then watch the video after this. Okay then, so let's get into how to make our teethy monster kit. Well, what comes in your kit? Of course, you've got the card giving you the link to this video, some wool, the body, 2 little head parts like this. The best bit, the bag of accessories. Let's open those up, see what's in there. Okay then, we've got some offcuts of wood here, put those to one side. We've got some things we could use for hair. We've got more offcuts of wood and buttons and pegs and stars and bolts and all manner of stuff that you can add on later on. We've got a cool piece of sandpaper. We've got some wires here, and we've got a selection of dowels, your legs, a little bit with a fork at the back, and then we've got some dowels there too, and of course the most important part, the teeth. Okay then, you're going to need some kind of glue, either PVA glue or super glue. I suggest using super glue because it's much quicker and easier. Also, you're going to need probably a pair of pliers to push the wire in, and then a little mallet is good as well. Of course, one of our Ash & Co wands that's personalised for you would be perfect. So I'm going to put that there. Okay then, let's get stuck in. Okay, so you're going to want to start by giving all of your pieces a nice sand. We want to take off these sharp edges here. Okay, this is called the aris, and we want to take off the aris with a piece of sandpaper. So get your sandpaper and just rub it back and forward over all the edges. It doesn't take a very long time. If you want to smooth your character all the way around, you can do that now as well. But you want to do this for the head, the body, all the pieces, and this here as well, the legs here as well, okay? So I'm going to do it the magic way though, like this. Ta-da! Great stuff. I'm all done. You see, I've rounded over all the edges. There's no sharp bits left on this anymore. So let's get started. Let's move everything out of the way. We're going to start with the legs. Okay then, what we really want to do is put the dowels into the leg parts first. So all you need to do is get a dowel on the piece of wood like this, get a mallet, one like this is really good, and just give it a tap. Now listen for the change in sound. Listen. And did you hear it suddenly started making a much louder noise? That means the dowel's gone all the way through the piece of wood and was touching the bench. And look, it's gone all the way through. That's perfect. Okay then, so let's do those. We want 4 of those. Okay then, so that's my 4 dowels in. I did notice that this one was a little bit loose. That happens sometimes where the dowel is maybe thinner or something like that. So we're going to try another one. That one's loose too. So in that case, we're going to need to make a little adjustment and just stick this dowel into the hole. So I'm going to get a little bit of glue and just pop it around the hole here, just a tiny bit, and put the dowel in like so. Okay, then we can leave that now to one side to just set for a second. And we're going to move on to our body. This is the body of our character. The legs go here and the arms go there and the head goes on top. But how do we create our teethy monster head? Well, it's really easy. We have to stick this piece on the front like so. So why don't we start with that? Okay, I've got my gloves on and now I want to stick the top of the head on like this. Of course you can use PVA, and if you want to hold things while they set, just get some masking tape or even sellotape and put the glue on like this and then sellotape it over just so that it holds while it dries. Okay, but I'm going to use super glue so I don't have to wait. I'm just going to put a little bit here. Now I'm not putting it right at the very edge because it'll squish out a little bit and we don't really want it to squish out if we can avoid it. Now I'm going to get it in the right position. And then I'm going to push nice and hard. I really want to push that hard to close this gap up here. And then count to about 30. 1, 6, 29, 15, 32, 64, 172, 3,464, 30. Brilliant, that's it, I'm done. Now you see now there's going to be a slight difference in where you've sanded these. So just get your sandpaper and just match the two together to make it look nice. Okay, that's going to do. Next job is the teeth. Now you can decide, you can have the teeth maybe this way around, like this, but I'm going to have my kind of white tooth in the middle, so he looks like that. Okay, so we've got to stick these teeth on next, so all we need to do is put a tiny bit of glue on the back of the teeth like this, maybe some on the top like that where he's going to stick into the mouth, and then put him in position. Okay, that's one. Straight on to the next one. 3. Oh yeah, he's looking like a monster. Okay, he is there. Now he is going to need one of these dowels, the longer one for the head. So we're going to put this in the head hole to start with. Hopefully it will just push in. If not, you could just tap it with a hammer. Okay, and get it to the right height. And then we can push his head on now and just check that he's working okay. And he is. He looks fantastic. Okay, so the dowels are a tiny bit loose. So there's 2 ways you can fix that. You can either put some glue and glue one side in like we did before, or you can put a little piece of super glue on the edge of the dowel and just let that dry. Don't do anything else with it at all, just let it dry. Okay, so just leave that to one side for a moment. Okay, while we're leaving that to dry, what we're going to do is get the little kind of fork bit that goes at the back and attach the wire. You can see it's got a tiny little hole in there. So I'm going to get the wire. Which colour wire should I use? I think I'm going to go for this colour here. I think this looks cool. So let's get some pliers about 1 centimetre away from the edge. Hopefully you can see that. I'm going to put it on the hole like this, and then I'm going to twist and push at the same time. Twist and push, twist and push. Now I know that that's gone in at least 1 centimetre. Then I can move my pliers back a tiny bit. Twist and push, twist and push. That's it, and that's about as far in as it's going to go. And that's how you attach the hook on. If you're having a problem getting this to stay on, you can put a tiny bit of super glue in the hole, but you usually don't need to. Okay then, so we can move on now to putting the legs on. So let's just pop those in position. There you go, that's my legs. And these are my arms. Pop those in and pop those in. I've got to be careful because this is still setting. Okay, so I'm going to move on now to round his back. I want to put on his little fork. So I'm going to hold it again about 1 centimetre away. And I'm just going to push that into the hole in the back. Give it a twist. Now you want that to go in as far as it can go. Give it a good push and get some help with this if you need it. I've done pretty well there. And then we can bend that up. There you go, that's his little fork. He's starting to look cool now. Now, while this, I just want to let this set for a minute. So now I'm going to work on the head. We're going to need some eyes, obviously. You've got a whole selection with your accessories pack here. You could do something crazy like an eye sticking out like this, or stars for eyes, or a peg for an eye, or anything like that. But I'm going to go a bit more conventional. I think I'm going to go for, yeah, 2 nuts like this. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. Okay then, so I need my glue. Just going to put a little bit of super glue, dot it on the back of the nuts like this, and then just drop it on. Now, if you want your monster to look cute, they look really cute if their eyes are close together. If you put them further apart, they look less cute. Okay. Whoops, he looks pretty funny to me. Now this bit's tricky. If you're getting stuck to it, you can use your pliers to kind of move it around so you get it where you want it to be. And I actually just want it to be slightly different like that. Okay, once you've got it in the right position, just leave it alone and it will dry off. So now then, you could add a little nose, or you could leave it as it is, or maybe you can make him an angry monster. So if you cut a little bit of the wire you've got, and you put one bit here like this, and one bit here like this. Now he's like, I'm an angry monster, angry. Or maybe like this, he's like, oh, I'm a cute monster, help me. Yeah, I prefer him cute, so I'm going to stick those on. I think they look funny. Okay, little bit of glue. And just drop the wire onto the glue and then try and leave it alone. That's the best way to do it. A little bit of glue on the wood. Okay, and drop that on there. There you go. He looks a bit cute or worried or something. Okay, you've got all these accessories left. You can add some hair to your monster. Why don't we do that? Add a little bit of hair. Put a little bit of glue on there. And hold it down. Okay, there we go. His hair's hanging off the back there. Okay, and then you can add other things like ears and stuff like that, but I'll leave that up to you to use your imagination, because you can make it anything you want to do. Now, the super glue on this has dried now, which has actually made the dowel a little bit wider than it was. So if it's kind of loose in the hole now, hopefully it will be a much tighter fit. Yeah, and it is. In fact, it's sliding in the bottom hole, but there we go. See, that fits in there now really nice and tightly. So if your dowel's a bit loose, that's a really good trick. Bit of super glue and just let it dry. Okay then, so I'm going to put his head in here. And that is my monster. Don't you think he looks cool? Hi everybody. Now you can go to town. You've got other things you can use for hair. You can make him look crazy, make him look like a clown. You could put, maybe he's got a hairy tummy. Whatever you want to do, make it your own and just have the best of fun making these characters. Once you finish them like this, you can paint them or you can colour them in, or you can just leave them like this. This is really good quality hardwoods and they look fantastic if you put some oil on them. This is Iroko wood. We've got some ash here and we've even got a little bit of walnut just in there. So I hope you enjoy making them. Have fun, guys. Bye. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Okay guys, so the first tip we've got is how to get these little wires in. Now, if your wire's kind of bent like this, that's going to cause you a problem. So try your best to get it as straight as possible. But especially if it's bent right on the very end here, that's super important. So once you've got it nice and straight, then the best way is to get a pair of pliers and hold the wire about a centimetre, maybe a bit less, a centimetre back from the edge, and hold it very, very tightly. Then when you're trying to poke it into one of these holes, you put it over the hole and you push and twist at the same time. Push and twist, push and twist, push and twist. Now I know that that's gone in at least 1 centimetre. Then you can pull your pliers back a little bit and do the same thing again. Push, 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 push. Now that's in far enough. Now for these engine blocks, from there I can just bend it down and then I can use the other side of the pliers just to cut off the wire there. Okay, so that's a really good tip. If you're doing a tail for an animal, same thing applies. Hold it about a centimetre back and then get it into the hole and you just twist it like this. And then that way, look, you know it's gone in and then it's really in there nice and solid. Then you can bend it and make your tail. That's tip number 1. So for the next tip, a common problem we often see is when they've got a bit worn out, the dowels that go into the hole can be a bit loose and they can kind of fall out. So we've got one here that's kind of a bit loose. You can see here, there's no kind of friction there at all. So one of the ways that you can fix this is either to glue one side of the dowel into the head like this, but then the other side can still go into the other hole where it's nice and tight. And then that way you've glued it one side but not in the other, and then you can still move the head around like this. That's one way to fix it. Should it be loose on both sides, then there's a little trick that we use in the workshop here, and that's just to get some super glue like this, put a tiny bit of super glue, just a little bit like that. Hopefully you guys can see that. Let me try and focus the camera. Okay, just a tiny, tiny bit of super glue. So you can put some on one side and then just leave it to one side, somewhere where it's not going to stick. I don't know, on a piece of wood or something like that, and just let that dry. Okay, now when that's dry, that's then widened your dowel, and the next time you put it into the hole, it'll be nice and tight in there for you. But remember, you've got to make sure the glue has dried, and it might take half an hour or so, unless you've got one of those activator sprays you can use to set the glue instantly. Okay, so that's our top tip for if the dowels loose in the hole. Okay then, so our next tip is about using PVA. If you bought one of these from us, you have to unscrew the main lid first and there'll be a little cap in there. You have to take that out if you're wondering why the glue's not coming out. Okay, and just screw that on like that. Now, PVA is perfectly fine to use with our kits, but obviously it takes a lot longer to set. So if you wanted to glue this dowel into the head, you could put a bit of glue on here, glue it into the head like this, and then you just have to leave it for, I don't know, maybe 25 minutes, half an hour, something like that, and then you can carry on. But it's a bit more tricky when you come, say you want to stick on a piece of wire for the mouth or something like that, and you want to use PVA for that. You have to put quite a lot of PVA on, make sure that the mouth is nice and flat, but then you have to leave it like overnight. Probably up to 24 hours to set properly for each component that you put on there. Now, in that time, the components can move around. So our top tip for you is to get some masking tape and just put it over the components to hold them in place. And then whenever it's dry, you can take the masking tape off and the masking tape won't stick to the PVA. Top tip if you're using PVA. Okay, this is our top tip for if you are using super glue. Super glue is absolutely fantastic, but you must always wear your gloves just in case. But if you stick yourself to something and you've got a glove on, it's easy. You can take your glove off. You stick your finger, not so easy. So when you're sticking two pieces of wood together, maybe you want to stick these two pieces, you put a little bit of super glue on and you put the two pieces together, wait for about 30 seconds and then no problem, it will be set. It's a bit more tricky when you're sticking things on like washers here or buttons. So I just want to show you the best trick to do this. Now the key thing is don't use too much super glue. So let's go for the top here. Now I always put the super glue on the thing that I'm going to stick on first. I've done it in a little round shape there. I don't know if you can see how much I've put on there, but there, just a really tiny amount. And then I'm going to get my washer and just kind of drop it on top like that. Just drop it on and that's it. Alternatively, you could always use a pair of long nose pliers like we've got in our kits, our essential toolkits. They're really handy too. So let's just stick this one on like this. Now I'm going to use these long nose pliers here. Going to hold the thing like this, and then again just drop it on. There we go. And then just tap it just to make sure it's on. Now the key thing to that is not using too much super glue. If you use too much, it'll spread out everywhere and it will take ages to set. The other way you can do it, of course, is to hold the item that you're going to stick on in a pair of pliers like this, or tweezers would do as well, and then put a bit of glue on the part itself. See, just a little bit there. I'm going to put this on as a nose, just going to drop it, and it's not come off, so just use the lid of the super glue. Oh, there we go. Push it down, there we go. Leave that to dry now. You know, give it a good few minutes to dry, and then everything will be good. Okay, that's our super glue top tip. Our next top tip is about sanding and how you should sand. It's probably the most important part of your build, the bit that will really set your character apart and make it look amazing. When something's sanded properly, it really does look fantastic. So this is a piece of Iroko here, and you can see it has kind of lines running down the wood like this. That's called the grain. Now when you're sanding, you want to sand with the grain because you're essentially putting scratches in the wood. If you sand this way across the grain, you're going to put scratches all the way across here, and that might be something that you don't want. So when you're sanding like this, you should always sand back and forward. And the key thing is to take off sharp edges like this. So all you need to do is back and forward like this, back and forward, all the way over, and pay special attention to those sharp edges, all the way over, like this. Then of course you want to do the end edges too, so I'm going to come across like this, across like that, same here. Okay, and then one more to go. There you go. Now that's the minimum amount of sanding you should be doing with a block like this. But of course you can get your sandpaper, wrap it round a block like this, and use that as a little sanding block. And these are really handy. So say you want to do a component like this, you want to sand with the grain, but you can see here this component's pretty weak, so we've got to be careful. So if this were me, I would put it on a bench like this, or just on a flat surface, and then I can work it back and forward. So I'm going with the grain, just nice and gently, not putting too much pressure on the part. Nice and gently like this, sand, sand, sand. Okay, great. Okay, that'll do. And then of course we want to take off the aris, or the sharp edge. So I'm just going to work my way around the part. Make sure that on parts that might break like this, you hold it nice and tightly so we're not putting too much pressure on it, because we don't want to break our pieces. And then going to go back, do the other bit. Okay, well you get the idea, okay? And then you can finish off the whole part like that. Now there is one other technique that I'd really like to show you, and that is putting your sandpaper flat onto a bench. Younger kids tend to get on quite well with this one, okay? So if I want to sand the back of this piece, put the sandpaper on a bench. You can even tape it down if you really want to. Put the piece you want to sand on top of it and rub it back and forward like this. If I want to do my edges, I can just turn it, rub the edge, turn it, rub the edge. And that's a good way of sanding components too. So there you go. They're my tips on sanding. Have fun, guys.